We have to find somebody that'll work with us that has dealt in the dirtiest of dirty business. We're losing.
Sean Diddy Combs, seen in what he's now calling stolen footage, getting dressed, greeting fans.
I need some hand sanitizer. Yeah, I gotta take a bath.
Everybody watching this right now needs to understand something. What's happening behind the scenes of the industry isn't just controversy anymore, it's exposure season. And the situation blowing up right now is bigger than gossip, bigger than rivalry, bigger than old beef.
And arguing with his lawyers 6 days before his arrest in New York last year.
Listen to me. I'm gonna get off the phone right now, and I am gonna let you professionals look at the situation and come back to me with a solution.
Was there anything that surprised you when you were watching?
I think it was surprising that he actually filmed it. That's one of the moments where he forgot he was on tape.
Curtis 50 Cent Jackson at the helm of the 4-part docuseries Sean Combs' The Reckoning, coming to Netflix December 2nd. The longtime Diddy critic sitting down with Robin Roberts on Good Morning America Monday.
If Sean Combs watches this, what do you think he's going to feel?
Like, wow, this is amazing. I think he's gonna say this is the best documentary I've seen in a long time.
Expect more never-before-seen moments, plus 2 jurors speaking out for the first time about how they reached their mixed verdict back in July.
It was a scary situation because you have, 12 people who hold the fate of your life.
As for Diddy, well, he's sharing his thoughts with ET from a New Jersey prison, where he's serving a 50-month sentence on prostitution-related charges. Through a spokesperson, he's calling the project a shameful hit piece that relied on stolen footage that was never authorized for release.
We have to find somebody that'll work with us that has dealt in the dirtiest of dirty business.
Diddy's team says Mr. Combs has been amassing footage since he was 19 to tell his story in his own way. It's fundamentally unfair and illegal for Netflix to misappropriate that work. They add it's equally staggering that Netflix handed creative control to a longtime adversary with a personal vendetta.
How do you respond to people who say that it's more about the disdain that you have for Sean Combs than it is for giving the victims a platform?
What they consider a pre-existing beef, right, for 20 years, right, is me being uncomfortable with it.
To go back a long time, they have been rivals for a long time. And this week we learned that, at least from Diddy's side of things, this feud apparently went far beyond words. 50 Cent's name came up during the testimony this week of Capricorn Clark. She is a former assistant of Sean Combs, who went on to become the head of marketing for his Sean John clothing brand. Clark rose successfully and professionally through the ranks of Diddy's world during her time working for him, which stretched between 2004 to 2018, so she saw a lot. Clark claimed that Diddy would threaten her, and she says he even kidnapped her in 2011. All of this matters as we build up to how 50 Cent kind of factors into what she said on the stand. Now, Capricorn Clark started working for Bad Boy after she worked for Death Row Records. Now, that's surprising, since Death Row was ran by perhaps Diddy's most hated enemy, Suge Knight. Clark said that one of her good friends had a baby with Suge Knight, and that's how she knew him. And in perhaps the most shocking story from her testimony, Clark claimed that shortly after she started working for Diddy, Diddy and his security guards took her to Central Park after dark, and Diddy said, quote, "He told me he didn't know that I had anything to do with Suge Knight, and if anything happened, he would have to kill me." It is an allegation that paints Combs as someone who is ready to take a life. But as Capricorn Clark's testimony continued, she brought up another rival of Sean Diddy Combs and another allegation that he made an ominous threat of violence. Clark testified, when working for Diddy, they went to a press event at MTV and 50 Cent was there. And just wait until you hear what she says Diddy told 50's manager. 50 Cent's real name is Curtis Jackson. He rose to fame in the early 2000s. You might remember songs like In the Club. You might remember that he was the leader of the rap group G-Unit. Now, 50 grew up in Jamaica, Queens, New York. Diddy, also a New York native. He was born in Harlem, grew up in Mount Vernon, New York, just about 20 miles away. And even though they both had success in music, they both rose to fame.
This is legacy-level damage unfolding in real time. Because for decades there's been this untouchable figure, a mogul figure, somebody who built an empire off image, power, connections, and fear. The kind of person nobody questioned publicly because the machine around them was too strong. Careers were made in those rooms, and careers were ended in those same rooms. And now, somebody from inside that circle, not an outsider, not a blogger, not a random critic, somebody who lived in that system, somebody who benefited from it, somebody who saw everything firsthand, is finally talking. And what's coming out isn't pretty. We're talking about stories from the early years, back when the empire was still being built brick by brick, back when young talent was being brought in, molded, controlled, back when loyalty wasn't optional, it was survival. According to what's being revealed, the environment wasn't just competitive, it was suffocating. Psychological pressure, manipulation, isolation tactics designed to make artists dependent on the machine controlling them. And the most chilling part isn't
representing the city of New York and the rap scene there. They have been longtime rivals. In 2006, 50 Cent released a diss track about Diddy. So almost 20 years ago, this goes back a long way. And in that diss track, he says, quote, "Who shot Biggie Smalls? We don't get 'em. They gon' kill us all. Man, Puffy know who hit that expletive. Man, that expletive soft." Now 50 is accusing Combs there of knowing who killed his friend, the notorious B.I.G. Christopher Wallace. Wallace and Puffy were incredibly close, but Wallace was shot and killed in a drive-by shooting in Los Angeles in 1997, and no one has ever been charged for pulling the trigger. This all happened during really the height of the East Coast-West Coast rap rivalry of the 90s, which involved Suge Knight, who we mentioned earlier. 50 Cent has also accused Diddy of orchestrating the murder of death row rapper Tupac Shakur, who died in 1996 in a Las Vegas drive-by shooting. This is Dwayne Keith D. Davis. He was arrested in September 2023, and he is the only person facing charges related to Tupac's murder. But 50 Cent has continued to push the allegation that Sean Combs either knows something or did something for Tupac to end up dead, though Diddy has denied that. But in a 2023 Instagram post, 50 wrote, "Damn, so Pac got lined by brother love, LOL, time to lawyer up, expletive might get sticky," with a pic of Suge Knight in a car with Tupac. Diddy, who has a lot of names, Puff Daddy, Puffy, Puff, and Brother Love is one of those other names. Now from Diddy's side of things, again, he's denied having anything to do with Tupac's murder, and he's also denied having anything to do with Christopher Wallace's death, and he's denied publicly having issues with 50 Cent. Here's what Combs said when he was asked about a beef with 50 in a 2018 interview with the radio show The Breakfast Club, Power 105.1 FM.
Hey, yo, I don't have no beef with I don't know why. With Fifth. He loves me. He loves me.
Do y'all really
can't
have
see
a
it?
beef?
I mean, y'all can't see it.
No, we can't see
Y'all
it,
can't
man.
see that he loves me?
But see,
you really, hold on, you really think that's hate?
If you look at 50's social media, you can see he has a lot of posts about Diddy. And this is what he posted the day that federal agents in Miami raided Combs' mansion ahead of his arrest on the charges that he's now on trial for. 50 Cent posted on X, "Now it's not Diddy do it, it's Diddy done. They don't come like that unless they got a case." 50 Cent also included a link to his G-Unit clothing brand in that post. While Diddy in the Breakfast Club clip said that 50 Cent actually loves him and there was never a beef, on the stand this week, Capricorn Clark said otherwise. Clark said that she was at this press event at MTV with Diddy and 50 Cent was also there, all of this happening in New York. Clark said, quote, "After the interview wrapped up, myself, Puff, and Chris Lighty got in the elevator." Clark said that Lighty was an entertainment manager who, on paper, was managing Diddy at the time, but was also 50 Cent's manager at the time. Prosecutors asked Clark what happened in the elevator, and she said, quote, "Puff told Chris, because they were having some sort of issue, like, I really don't like all the back and forth. I don't do that. I like guns." The prosecutor then asked, "What's the issue with an individual?" And Clark responded, he had an issue with 50 Cent. She said Combs was very serious when he said that. In this case, it has become common to hear testimony from witnesses about alleged threats by Diddy. In fact, several witnesses have said that Diddy regularly threatened to fire people, to beat people, like his former girlfriend Cassie Ventura, and in this case, making a threat involving firearms.
even the control itself, it's the normalization of it. Because when you're young, when you're hungry, when you finally get access to wealth, fame, opportunity, you convince yourself that whatever you're experiencing is just the industry. You tell yourself it's the price of success. But years later, when distance gives you clarity, that's when the realization hits that certain lines should have never been crossed. And the insider speaking out now is painting a picture of an ecosystem built on power imbalance. Private gatherings where influence was tested, situations where saying no didn't feel like an option, moments where careers were dangled like leverage. And the mogul at the center of it all? Always positioned untouchable, always insulated, always surrounded by people whose livelihoods depended on protecting the brand. That's how systems like this survive, not through silence alone, but through mutual benefit. Because while some people felt uncomfortable, others were profiting. And when money is flowing,
to settle a dispute per the testimony of someone who was one of his closest associates for more than a decade. Invoking gun violence and some sort of veiled threat, that could be scary for some, but apparently not 50 Cent. On Instagram, 50 posted right after his name came up in the courtroom, quote, cut, wait a minute. Puffy's got a gun? I can't believe this. I don't feel safe, with a picture that looked like an AI image of 50 Cent on a movie set looking serious. And he wasn't done. Shortly after that, he posted another AI image on Instagram of him in a Yankees hat with a very scared look on his face with the caption, "Oh my goodness, itty bitty Diddy wants me dead. I have to lay low." Sad face emoji. I think I'm gonna hide out at the playoff game tonight, LOL. Then the next day he posted what he did that night. He went to the NBA playoff game between the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers in Indiana. And you can see him here in a picture on the floor in a shirt that reads, quote, "Free Diddy," playing into the trolling that 50 Cent has done to Sean Combs over the years, even before Combs was ever accused of what he is on trial for. Now, Combs' trial is expected to last another month at least. He's charged with racketeering, sex trafficking by force, and transportation to engage in prostitution. He has pleaded not guilty. Join us now to talk more about the trial of Sean Diddy Combs and everything that's going on inside the courtroom is Afi Patterson, civil and criminal defense attorney. Thanks for taking the time to be with us. We're focusing on what was a minor moment in the grand scheme of everything we heard in the trial this week, but there's this anecdote that Capricorn Clark told about what related to 50 Cent, but what Diddy allegedly told 50 Cent's manager at MTV during her time of working for Diddy. What did you make of that? Sean Combs saying, "I don't like the back and forth, but I like guns."
You know, I think it goes to the overall case. They've been saying that Diddy was a dangerous guy. If he made a threat, he could back it up. And I do recall reading that she said that his demeanor was very, very serious. And knowing the history, knowing his history, his violent history, knowing about the beef between Biggie and Tupac, I think that it probably frightened her. And I think that just again, her knowing about his violence, his propensity for violence, his behavior with her, his behavior with Cassie, his behavior with other employees, he's just continually reinforcing that violence. So I think it was a really good moment for the government.
Yeah, it's just, and it seems like there are these little moments along the way where there are some celebrity names that pop up. This case, it was 50 Cent. We heard earlier in the trial, Usher and Neo were at a dinner where Cassie was allegedly assaulted. It was unclear whether they saw that, but it was said that they were there. As far as the history of 50 Cent and Diddy, do we know how it started? I know that 50 Cent had a diss track, I think around 2006, claiming that Sean Combs knew who killed Biggie Smalls, but is there a particular incident that happened that made 50 Cent just seem to really start to come at Sean Combs?
You know, I don't know what's ground zero for them. I've seen, interviews that 50 has given saying that it's all business with them. I know they both have alcohol lines, and I know, they're both from New York. I think 50 is maybe from Queens and Diddy is from Harlem. I don't know what their ground zero is, but I know that since this...
Morality gets real flexible real fast. But what changed? Why now? Why would someone who stayed quiet for years suddenly decide to speak? Simple. Because the shield is cracking. Over the last few years, the public image has been eroding. Lawsuits, allegations, whispers turning into headlines, the untouchable aura fading piece by piece. And when power starts slipping, that's when former insiders feel safe enough to step forward. Not because the truth just happened, but because the protection around the lie finally weakened. The revelations being hinted at aren't framed like revenge either, they're framed like release. Like someone carrying stories for decades finally deciding the weight isn't worth holding anymore. And what makes this even heavier is the emotional tone behind it. There's no celebration in the exposure, it sounds more like trauma processing, like revisiting rooms and moments that never sat right. Describing fear disguised as mentorship, control disguised as guidance, loyalty enforced through intimidation rather than respect. And the public reaction? Explosive. Because
could be called to testify against him.
It's possible. It's absolutely possible. If I was the prosecutor handling that case, I absolutely would list her, right? But of course, we need to know whether or not she'd be cooperative. That, of course, changes the strategy when it comes to trial. So you may list someone as a potential witness. That does not mean you're necessarily going to call them. The question is whether or not their testimony is really going to help you. But there is a universe where she could testify against him in terms of, violence, in terms of his interactions with other artists, especially the folks that have been coming forward alleging that he has harmed them in some way or engaged in, human trafficking and sex trafficking. So was she aware of any of that going on? Did she see him with underage girls, or was she present for when some of those videos were taken that Little Rod, included screenshots of those videos in his pleadings? So how much of that did she know? When did she know it? And what actions did she take at the time? Is that part of the reason why they broke up? We don't know. So all of this will remain to be seen. Obviously, the prosecution and law enforcement need to speak with her, get a statement from her to understand what she knows or what she could be able to testify to, and then make appropriate decisions from there.
But it's not just artists that Lil Rod named either. He specifically mentioned Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, in court docs. It reads in part, quote, Mr. Combs was known for throwing the best parties. Affiliation with and/or sponsorship of Mr. Combs' sex trafficking parties garner legitimacy and access to celebrities, such as famous athletes, political figures, artists, musicians, and international dignitaries like British Royal Prince Harry. Why even name Prince Harry? There's no allegations against him or anything, but why bring him up?
I think it may have been a move to bring more credibility to the filing and say that, basically he being Diddy, was using his fame, fortune, and influence to insulate himself. So he was able to legitimize some of the activities he was doing by having these lavish parties, bringing all these A-list celebrities, but somewhere in a back room or somewhere in another wing, horrible things were happening. So the fact that Prince Harry was there does not necessarily mean he was participating in what was happening. And just because you were at a party doesn't mean you know what's happening in every inch of the house. I mean, if you think about it, if the party's being thrown in a mansion, there are various floors and wings. So it is completely possible that he was there and did not participate. Now, if you had said Prince Andrew, especially as a result of the allegations that came out in connection with the Epstein case, that they were close and that they traveled together, and there was a person that alleged that he had sexually assaulted her while she was underage, that would be a different story. But Prince Harry and the way that it was mentioned seemed to be very, again, just sort of trying to bring legitimacy and talk about these were the people that Diddy surrounded himself by to protect himself.
Prince Harry has no criminal charges or even any accusations of illegal activity, but he could still see the inside of a courtroom in a deficit.
Fans spent years idolizing the empire, the music, the lifestyle, the success story. People saw inspiration, not intimidation. So hearing that behind the luxury, there may have been coercion, behind the mentorship, manipulation, it flips the narrative completely. Now everybody's re-examining old footage, old interviews, old interactions that once looked normal but now feel uncomfortable in hindsight. That's always how these reckonings go. The past doesn't change, but perception does. And suddenly moments that were laughed off years ago start looking darker when context is added. What's even more damaging is the suggestion that the behavior wasn't isolated, it was systemic. Meaning it wasn't just one artist, or one incident, but a culture. A culture where access to opportunity came with unspoken expectations. Where proximity to power required submission to power. And again, none of this was visible publicly because the empire controlled narratives as well as careers. Media relationships, industry alliances, strategic partnerships.
Defamation case.
It's possible that Prince Harry may be able to preserve his reputation. And since it was such a minuscule mention in the greater context of this filing, he may be okay.
Another celebrity mentioned in Lil Rod's lawsuit is Young Miami, who dated Diddy from 2021 to 2023. According to the lawsuit, Young Miami's cousin assaulted Lil Rod during the Thanksgiving holiday in 2022. It reads, quote, Young Miami's cousin burst into the bathroom and began groping Mr. Jones. She started undressing and attempted to straddle him and have sex with him in the presence of Mr. Combs and his staff. Similar to Prince Harry, there are no allegations against Young Miami herself, so there's probably no worry of charges being filed against her. But there could be charges against some of the other people listed in Lil Rod's lawsuit. That's people like Diddy's chief of staff, Christina Coram, who Lil Rod compares to Ghislaine Maxwell, the longtime companion of Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein died by suicide in 2019 when he faced numerous charges of sexual assault over the course of multiple years. Maxwell was charged and found guilty of sex trafficking in relation to her time with Epstein, and she's currently serving a lengthy prison sentence. Lil Rod says Christina Coram ordered sex workers and prostitutes for Mr. Combs and ordered and distributed ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, and mushrooms to Mr. Combs and his celebrity guests who were present on his rented yacht and his homes in LA, NYC, and Miami. This is referenced in Diddy's indictment too, saying members and associates of the Combs enterprise, including high-ranking supervisors, security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and other Combs business employees, facilitated the freak-offs by, among other things, booking hotel rooms for the freak-offs, stocking the hotel rooms in advance with the required freak-off supplies, including controlled substances, baby oil, lubricant, extra linens, and lighting. Federal prosecutors also allege these associates arranged travel for victims and commercial sex workers, delivered large sums of cash to Diddy to pay these sex workers, and even scheduled the delivery of IV fluids. So according to Melba, it's possible some of these associates are charged too.
None of these cases, when you have these high-profile people that have been using people over years, none of these cases happen without a handler. R. Kelly had a handler. Epstein had a handler, Weinstein had a handler. Everybody has, in those scenarios of those powerful people, powerful men that are abusing other people, they have someone that does their dirty work. And it's usually not only just one person, it's several people who may have different duties. So again, seeing this woman being his handler, being the person to get him drugs, being the person to procure sex workers for him, being the person to basically be on cleanup duty in case of, covering up or silencing people that might want to come forward, that's not unusual. And she is also going to bear the brunt of criminal liability, just like Ghislaine Maxwell did, and basically had to take the entire brunt of the criminal justice system alone because of the fact that, Epstein committed suicide and was not able to be held accountable.
And we can't talk about Diddy without mentioning Cassie, the one whose lawsuit blew the lid off Diddy's alleged scheme. She filed civil suit against Diddy last November under the New York Survivor Act, meaning any sexual assault survivor could file suit against their accused predator, and the statute of limitations didn't matter. Cassie's
When you control the story, you control the perception. But social media changed that equation. Now insiders don't need gatekeepers to speak. They don't need press approval. They can go direct. And once one voice breaks the silence, others start feeling less alone. That's the domino effect happening right now. People from different eras of the empire, subtly confirming patterns without even coordinating. One shares a memory, another validates the environment, another hints at similar discomfort. Individually they're stories, collectively they're a pattern. And patterns are what destroy legacies. Because one allegation can be dismissed, but multiple aligned accounts start reshaping public belief. The mogul's camp, of course, is pushing back hard. Denials, legal positioning, claims that everything being said is exaggerated, misinterpreted, or financially motivated. Standard crisis defense. But public opinion isn't moving the same way it used to. There was a time when power could bury controversy. Now controversy multiplies under scrutiny. And what's haunting about this entire situation is the generational impact being discussed. The insider speaking out isn't just talking about personal experiences, they're talking about what they witnessed happen to others coming up after them. Cycles repeating. Young talent entering the same environment, facing the same pressures, navigating the same psychological games. That's what turns controversy into reckoning, when it stops being about individuals and starts being about systems. Because dismantling a system threatens far more people than exposing one person. And that's why the resistance behind the scenes is reportedly intense. Reputations, business deals, historical legacies, all hanging in the balance. If the empire falls, it doesn't fall alone. It takes decades of industry mythology down with it. And fans are torn. Some refuse to believe any of it, clinging to nostalgia and the positive impact the mogul's work had on culture. Others feel betrayed, reevaluating whether the success they admired was built on exploitation. That emotional divide is where the public battle is happening. Not just courtrooms or contracts, but perception. Because legacy isn't decided by facts alone, it's decided by what the public chooses to remember. And right now, remembrance is shifting. And once silence turns into testimony, there's no putting that genie back in the bottle. So what we're witnessing isn't just controversy. It's the industry confronting the shadows it ignored while the lights were profitable. And the final outcome? Still unfolding. But the untouchable aura? Already cracked.